Covert hypnotism. Now, there's a ridiculous concept. Sexy though. I mean, honestly, it's hard to know what you should believe. It sounds very impressive to hear people talk about it, those that say they can do it. The idea that they can just captivate your attention by doing something innocuous, like they're just holding a conversation or telling a story, or giving a demonstration where they provide an example as to how they'd go about enchanting someone else, but at the same time they're dropping you into trance as they do it, beginning the process of taking over your mind, sowing interesting little ideas through your head about brainwashing or blanking out every one of your thoughts, or replacing your thoughts with blissful, empty obedience and making you their eager and unwitting slave, all without your noticing. I mean, the idea is clearly preposterous, but it's also pretty compelling, and who doesn't love the sensation of feeling compelled? I mean, it's hot to feel like you're the object of someone's attention. Sexy to think they might have plans for you, designs on your mind. So it's easy to see what the attraction is, and hypnosis itself is one of those very attractive topics that kind of has a pull, you know? And there are so many different ways to go about it. Showing you a nice pretty spiral, swinging a gem or a pendant or a pocket watch back and forth past your gaze, having you focus on a candle, gripping you firmly by the hair and whispering in your ear. So I guess, why shouldn't a little chat be capable of having the same effect? And that thought, that idea of being hypnotized without your knowledge or notice, well, there's so many different explanations as to why you might not notice it happening. Maybe you don't realize because an element of your mind is happier being blissfully oblivious. Maybe the thought of someone being so skilled and seductive that they can simply weave their words throughout your thoughts, giving a little push on your excitement here, relaxing away your caution or your self-restraint there. Or, whilst we're talking about restraint, why not reshaping your restraint whilst they hold your attention, using it to instead restrain your own awareness, training your brain to look the other way. You might think you're listening to an engaging story, thinking through some fantasies, and behind the scenes, elements of your mind are just melting away. Capabilities that you've always had are just being stripped from you whilst you imagine them being teased out of someone else. But this is just a thought exercise, right? We're talking about how someone might go about hypnotizing someone else, aren't we? You're certainly not being hypnotized, are you? Ridiculous. You're just enjoying the conversation, savouring these hot little sentiments. Someone simply watching made into a slave girl. Someone fairly skeptical transformed into a toy. Someone strong-willed, utterly brainwashed. On one hand, it sounds so ridiculous, you can't believe it. Someone made mindless without their even noticing, intoxicated through simple conversation. Someone having their memories rewritten even as they're listening to the hypnotist telling them a story. It can't possibly be true, can it? Which is why you can't consciously accept it, even though you'd love to, because it is just so appealing. It's a hot thought. It's a really hot thought, so it makes perfect sense that anyone would enjoy thinking about it. Perfect sense that once you begin to think about it, that thought would gain momentum. Because trance is like that. The mind is like that. Hypnosis has a gravity, a weight that pulls you in, pulls your muscles down, persuades your senses to soothe themselves away, replaces those natural tendencies towards skepticism or questioning with enjoyment, acceptance, eagerness, arousal. And who doesn't love feeling hot and turned on, And you love the thought of someone having that power to intoxicate, to enchant, to ensnare you without your even noticing. I'm sure you can picture it happening to someone else. I'm sure you've imagined a hypnotic stage show before, so imagine one now. A line of seated volunteers, listening intently to the voice of the hypnotist. The lights dim, dry ice coiling through the air. The voice of the hypnotist soothing, insistent, hypnotic, seductive, the words going in and being followed, even if to all intents and purposes it's beginning to look like those listening are tuned out, so dazed, so blank. Perhaps you can picture a skeptical person sat on the front row enjoying the show with their arms folded, the surface of their mind not even noticing how hot they find it watching all these volunteers dropping, one by one, not noticing how hot they're becoming, how they're squirming, not even considering how deeply they desire to drop themselves, not noticing how still they've become, how ready they are to surrender and join all the other volunteers the instant the command comes. Or perhaps you can picture a scene that's a little more racy, a kink club bondage demonstration, a showcase of rope and restraint, of consensual helplessness, a girl surrendering herself to be shaped and positioned, tied and contorted, moulded into erotic forms and then confined, held, bound in poses that reveal her vulnerability, but also her trust, her willingness to embrace her transformation into a display doll, into an object, into an erotic ornament for the enjoyment of all the onlookers. Perhaps you can picture her face, the bliss, the blankness, the emptiness that comes from surrendering to submission. Her rigor speaking smoothly and confidently in her ear, her pupils dilating, her facial muscles relaxed and expressionless, her waking self simply slipping away as she's puppeted, suspended, spun this way and that, shown off in all her emptiness. Or maybe it's the thought of being transformed and taken someplace innocuous that you like, someplace you wouldn't expect, bumping into a friend in a coffee shop, catching up with an old buddy who used to have a thing for hypnosis, and wow, turns out they still do have that thing for hypnosis, and my, aren't they engaging and interesting, and doesn't it feel good to just listen to them speak about all the fun ways that the mind can be played with? Doesn't it feel good to find yourself thinking about their hand raising, their fingers poised, then snapping, thinking about being transformed, thinking about your feelings and your mind being someone else's to shape? One moment curious, as far as you're aware, you're simply engaged in conversation. The next, 3, 2, 1, sleep, empty, awaiting commands. Blissful, brainless, ready for orders. And what would be noticed on your mind's return? What would you want to notice? I don't think you'd want to notice much at all, would you? Far more fun to play a little game, right? Hide and seek with your thoughts, seeking out your memories and finding instead sensations of calm, acceptance, distractedness, trying to remember, only to forget. Because it's hot to be helpless, right? To see it done to others, to picture it being done to yourself, to feel your body relaxing and your mind drifting down to a state where it works in fun new ways, the ways it's told to work. Someone else taking over whilst you drift in bliss. Someone else driving, shaping, controlling you as though you're their perfect little puppet. They get to decide and dictate who you are, how you feel, whether you have a mind or a personality, and what that personality should be. Maybe you get to be someone else, feeling and thinking in fun, new ways. Maybe you don't get to think at all, and you're just empty and blank, drone-like and brainwashed, and ready to respond and obey every order that comes your way. Thinking it through, how enticing the idea of being brainwashed and blank seems. How much you'd love to take a nice deep breath and feel yourself powerlessly dropping as you hear the countdown, as you hear the words 3, 2, 1, sleep. And you'd feel so much more blank, so much more blissed out, so much more brainless than ever before. Open and acceptant, ready to respond, eager to obey in every way, and incapable of thinking along any other lines. Because this is what you've wanted, what you've fantasized about, and what you've been drawn to. That's the idea that goes round and round in your mind every time you listen to me, my words, my voice, my orders. Blanking out. Feels good to imagine others being placed in that state. Hot to picture yourself joining them. Hotter not to realise that you're dropping so deeply. It's only natural to feel drawn to this. Only natural to follow your fantasies. Only natural to feel open and engaged and enthralled. Only natural to let your desires come to the forefront of your mind. Maybe because you've wanted this for a while. Maybe because I want to know what you long for and you just can't help but to tell me. So, after you've finished listening to my words, you're going to tell me all about what it is you wish. You're going to find yourself replying and spilling your desires, bearing your fantasies, though of course you'll phrase it as though the idea of being made into those things is just too ridiculous, too preposterous, not something that you would be compelled to do, no. Spilling your desires whilst refusing to acknowledge that that's what you're doing. You might say, a spellbound slave edging as she recites mantras until her controller lets her come, ridiculous. Or a brainwashed drone, pleasing, massaging, mindlessly obeying every order. It could never be done. Or stripped and bound and put on display like an erotic ornament, trapped inside myself and helpless to resist. Utter hogswallop. If you don't know, or you just enjoy feeling brainless, you can just say that, not forgetting to tell me afterwards how ridiculous it is. And if you want what I wish, well, in that case, if you want what I wish, you're going to tell me all about how much you want to be my display doll. How much you want to be trained and transformed, your mind shaped and shown off. How deeply you desire to be my drone, my brainwashed slave, my mind-blanked slut, my brainless, bimbotized demo dolly, my glamorous assistant bound to my will and incapable of realizing just how deeply you'll drop for me. All you'll remember on waking is how much you enjoyed this little thought exercise. All you'll recall is how silly the prospect of covert hypnotism really is. All you'll realize is that it feels really good writing a little comment, giving me a response, letting me know that we're on the same page, that covert hypnotism is crazy, that you could never be transformed without your knowledge, that there's no way you could fail to notice that you've been brainwashed. Totally ridiculous. And that's exactly what you'll tell me in 3, rising from trance, 2, feeling more energized, 1, and wake. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? Totally dumb. Really, really silly. It's never going to happen. Covert hypnosis? No. I don't know. What do you think? Let's have some fun. Answers down below.